Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Easter. Welcome to today's Author Talk, hosted by Cup of Tea with That Book, Please, a website full of book reviews and recommendations and related news, original writing, and of course, tea. My name is Whitney, and I am here with Tabrisha, creator of Cup of Tea with That Book, Please, and we will be into conversation today with our special guest, Alison Sampson, illustrator of many, many books that we'll talk about later. And we want to just give a big thank you to all of you attendees who will be joining us for sorry, let me start over. You'll be doing a number of things right now, but you're here today with this Q&A, and I will be monitoring the chat. Both Tabrisha and I will be monitoring the chat, and we'll be doing volleying some questions for Alison, and we'll share this recording plus any and all resources at the end of the presentation and email to attendees. But we just ask that you please be respectful to everyone. And I will get started with talking about Zoom on the next slide. So we're via Zoom. We ask that if you are not talking, please keep yourself muted. And Zoom comes with a range of features where you can interact with us, even if you are not able to talk or for whatever reason share your camera. Please utilize the chat box if you have any questions, comments, kudos for our panelists today. If you struggle with anything that we're saying for whatever reason, you can click that closed captioning button. And also, if you don't necessarily want to utilize the chat but want to give praise in form of emojis, you can do that by clicking on the reaction icon. No need to let us know if you have to leave or peace out. We totally understand. This is going to be, again, recorded, but you can just hit the leave button should you need. Next slide. And here are just some amazing books by Alison that we will hopefully be talking to, and hopefully they are available at your local library or your local bookstore. Tabrisha and I are particular fans of Sleeping Beauties, so definitely check that out. And without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to Tabrisha to start our conversation. Take it away, Tabrisha.
Thanks, Whitney. Hello, everyone. So again, my name is Sabrisha, and usually this is the part where I would introduce our special guest, but I feel Allison doesn't need any. She can do it herself in a sense. So I am going to kick it off to Allison to give us an introduction about herself and also her works and exciting stuff. So go ahead, Allison. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Whitney and Tabrisha. Thank you for having me on. And happy Easter to everybody who's here. And yeah, so I'm an artist, an illustrator, and I live in central London. This is that's one of our little railway embankments behind me in South London, which is full of little trains like that there. You may hear one while I'm speaking. And I work in this room and I draw comics and graphic novels, and sometimes I write things, and I also draw book covers as well. And that is what is on the table today. Strictly, I shouldn't be working, but kind of I like doing it, so I might do some. So the kind of things that I do, you've seen some of the covers. There's Winnebago Graveyard, which I did with Steve Niles, which is about a family who go on holiday in their camper van, accidentally get the camper van stolen at a creepy fairground and get stuck in a town full of Satanists, and it's exactly what you think it is. Sleeping Beauties is a Stephen King adaptation of the best-selling novel, which is more or less, what if all the women went away? A horror story or not? Hit girl in India, but written by Peter Milligan. So although it's a Mark Miller character, it's a Peter Milligan story, which entirely changes things. Thankfully. What else am I doing? Department of Truth. What if conspiracy theories were true? Which I have drawn a bit of. It's not my creator. It's Martin Simmons and James Tynion's creator owned book, which I've guested on, but I've drawn a fair chunk of it. And right now I'm drawing another creator owned book, and I've also drawn a whole bunch of stuff of fairly short form things from a range of people, for quite a few people. And for example, I've done like epitaphs from the Abyss and the EC comics, which I like doing. They're kind of nice. And I got asked this last week for the first time to do a sequential strip for 2000 AD, which I'm going to have to turn down because I've got too much work on. But it was really nice to be asked. And that is, oh, and I drew some Women of Marvel. I forgot. It's kind of, the Marvel anthologies are a kind of bit of a creature of their own. And yeah, no, I did that at Christmas. That was my other holiday project. So yeah, no, I sit here and I draw things and I color things, and it's kind of nice, to be honest. Yeah.
You got us so excited. And then you were like, "Ah."
I like doing it, you know. It's a real privilege to be able to do this. As you'll probably get to, when I was little, I just thought, I didn't even really think, I thought this was something some other people did, or indeed I didn't even think about people doing it at all. And you know, I was very much of the kind of position of the go and get a proper job type arrangement, which I did. And I, you know, the fact that there is space for me to do this is really meaningful, to be honest. I am very, very lucky.
Well, what made you want to be an illustrator? Is it something that you've always wanted to do, something that you kind of just fell into?
A bit of both, weirdly. So my background is I'm from, and this is something quite a lot of Americans will relate to. I'm from a very conservative background, from the countryside, from a farm. So it's the equivalent of a person off a farm, like in the middle of Iowa or somewhere, with sort of Trump voting parents, and like it's super, super, super traditional. And I was expected to go off and marry a rich farmer, and that was my parents' ambition for me. And so I was off in the countryside, and they didn't really do anything with me at all, and they kind of thought I was, I don't know what they thought I was. Anyway, they were mostly interested in my brother, who was going to become the farmer, and I was expected to go off and marry a rich farmer. So I was just like, just grow up and then go off and do that thing. And I was bored out of my mind. And so I would read everything. I would read anything I could find of it, which it was not a books household, so kind of there wasn't loads to read. And then I discovered the library, which there was a library, a very, very small library in our little local town, which was about twice as big as the room I'm sitting in. It had books all the way around the walls and one bookshelf sort of back to back in the middle. And it employed two people. And that was amazing. And then I discovered books. And then I was like, this is so cool. And it was the 1970s as well. And of course, this is the golden age of illustrated books. And so I was like, I'm in there. And I very much, and because there's not a lot to do on a farm, it's not like, one of the very few things you can do when you don't have any money and you're not actually anywhere is you can draw. And which is what I was doing. And we didn't even have money to buy things for me to draw on. So I drew on household packaging. Like I would get like kitchen packaging and I would unpick it and I would turn it inside out and then I would draw on that, or stuff. And we used to get printers offcuts. And so I was doing that, and I kind of liked doing that. I was quite good at it. And then I was like, oh, I'd like to do this, would be a great job. And then of course Margaret Thatcher got elected here, and it was all like entrepreneurship, get a proper job, and I did. And meaningfully, I had to, because I had to get off this farm and out of this life, which had no possibilities for me at all. And I'm not quite sure if I hadn't done that, what would have happened. And so I went to, did well, I worked hard at school, did well in my A-levels, went to university and studied architecture instead. Because I had to do, I don't know, that's what it's at that time, I think I felt that this was a proper job version of drawing, which nothing else was available to me. And I mean, we didn't know anybody who did illustration or did any of this. I was the first person to go to university. Nobody knew anything. And so I did that, and I did, it was good. And I went to the Bartlett School in central London, which is, I went to Cambridge, and then I went to the Bartlett School in central London, which is apparently still the best architecture school in the world, apparently. And who knows? And that was good. And then I worked in London for a long time, and I did a whole bunch of things. And then after about 20 years of this, I got made redundant and round about the age of 42, and which is not uncommon. And I was like bored, and you can only apply for jobs for some of the time. And so I started teaching myself to draw. It was a long time since I'd drawn with a pencil, you know, because we've been using computers in architecture since the 90s. And I was kind of doing that. And then one day somebody suggested to me, why don't you draw a comic? And I was more or less, what's a comic? More or less. And I was like, oh, I kind of knew, but it was sort of, it wasn't something that I thought I could do. And then I started finding out about comics. And then there was this anthology called Solipsistic Pop, which is a kind of UK comics legend now, because it was done in a moment where a lot of people wanted to self-publish in this. It was like a social, it's like a snapshot of the UK comics scene in that time, where there was a whole bunch of people who have gone on, there's quite a lot of us have gone on to do other things. And I wrote to the organizer, and I'd never drawn a comic before. And I wrote to the organizer and I said, can I be in your, can I do something for this anthology? And he said, no. So you haven't drawn a comic before. And I was like, that's right, that's absolutely true. But what I would like, if you could share it, is I'd just like to have the brief. So I've got the structure, so I can do some art in this kind of guideline that you have. And then nothing happened. And then this email came where I was on the list to be in the anthology. And I was like, that looks like a mistake to me. I think it probably was a mistake. And anyway, I was like, so I very quickly wrote and drew a short story about losing my job, and which is out there on the internet if anyone cares to find it. And a page of that found its way onto the internet. And then somebody emailed me and said, will you draw my graphic novel? And I said yes, because I thought, I'm 42. If I say no to this, what does that mean? You will never do it if you say no to this. That this is the moment. And so I said yes, and then I did draw it, and it was, boy, was it a baptism of fire. So yeah, no, it was I wanted to do it, and then I fell into it, which is sort of why when I was asked, I said yes, because I was kind of, I talk to people quite a lot about this, and there's a room of people in London, and most of them work in the arts and work in advertising and retail and whatever. And I say, if you were asked, what would you say? It's like, well, yeah, I said yes, and I hadn't. I don't really have an arts training. I mean, I've studied architecture, and that is project based, and you do drawing, but it's not art in the same way at all. And I don't know. But this seems to be okay. I do find myself, I'm just learning all the time, though. I mean, making comics, and particularly making book covers, it's it's really good training, because you have no idea about what you're doing. For example, I'm doing a book cover for Boom Studios at the moment for a book called Blink. And Blink, which hasn't been announced yet, is about it's about many things, but one of the people in it is this woman who kind of lives her life backwards, where she's old and then she is sort of reborn as an old person and basically gets younger and younger and younger and doesn't, but when she's old, she doesn't know anything. It's yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it's sort of right, make a cover for that. And so sort of untangling your thoughts to make a cover for that. I mean, I had ideas, but drawing them is a whole other thing. And I like this. I like this thing where there's a brief and structure. And, people say to me, oh, when are you going to write your own book? And it's sort of, well, I really enjoy this thing where somebody says, can you make a cover for this nebulous thing? And maybe I can. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's architecture for you. It's kind of, in architecture, everybody's a dilettante all the time because that's the nature of the thing. And that's partly why you go to college for so long, so you can handle it. But kind of, yeah, no, I never know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm currently drawing a comic about sharks, of course. So I have this is one of them. I have another one over there. I have a couple of sharks, and I don't know anything about sharks. Never drawn a shark before, and yeah, you find out. You find out. So yeah, and it all moves very fast, and it's only really relatively recently I've got it into sort of something which feels like a proper business. I mean, where there's consistent work and it's paying relatively okay. I don't really want to upset that. So, you know, it's it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So yeah, basically you get people asking you to do stuff and you have to say yes. Well,
I'm gonna apologize because this is that time of the day when my cat decides that this is this is her time, and so she might
okay.
appear on camera.
Cat.
Uh, but that was great, Allison. That like you just like you have your entire origin story about like how you became decided to become um an illustrator that I I think a lot of people would find that relatable because like you discover what you really I know that was like similar with me, like not me like going losing my job, but when you feel like something is lacking in your job, you find something else and you discover a passion. I think like a lot of people would definitely identify with what you like gone through, and it seems to have worked out. Like just saying yes at that one person who asked you, it just like catapult you into an amazing career. And I want to go back to like what you said, like when you said you discovered comics and illustration at the library and you grew up during the golden age of comics. Um, what was there like a particular comic book illustrator that you really identify with, like that kind of influences your current artist style?
Not really. I mean, what I was getting because right in the 70s, I was born in 1969, so I was, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my reading level was where it was. 2000 AD started in 1978. We got that. I mean, rather, I didn't get that. My brother got it and I read it. So that was amazing. Although what I did not relate to it as illustration, I related to the story, which was very political, which I didn't really think like that. But you read it and you knew it was political. It's a very odd thing now, you have these very very young children reading anti-fascist satire, and that's what we were doing. And I didn't really identify with people drawing it. The kind of thing I was reading, I had a lot of illustrated books. So I was more looking at books with illustrators as opposed to comics. And a lot of those people I can't remember. I mean, there was things like Puffin annuals where there's quite a lot of stylized 1970s sort of abstracted illustration. You get people like Charles Keeping and Brian Wildsmith. Brian Wildsmith has influenced me a lot and I think about his work quite a lot, but he's not a comics guy. He was a painter. He was in his later life, he got very, very religious and did a lot of religious books. But when he was a bit younger, he did these quite sort of abstract educational books for like 6-year-old, 5, 6-year-olds, which and I had my parents being as they were, they really liked him. I had all that stuff. How fantastic you get your ABC and religion. So good. So yeah, I don't remember lots of the names, and to be honest, I didn't think of it as people. I just sort of absorbed everything as much as I could.
Was it, I'm gonna kind of ask more of a technical question. Is it easier, or when you got started, was it hard to draw like actual people as you have more of a more
Yes.
technical background?
Yes.
You
Oh,
didn't
so
know it, but
I when I was doing the graphic novel, this first one, I'd never drawn a man before. I'd drawn women and I'd drawn children because I'd been drawing my friends' children, but I'd never drawn a guy. And I'm still not great at drawing guys. It's I mean, yeah, I had to learn everything. I didn't know anything. Like how big is the page and what is this Photoshop thing? And can my very old laptop handle a graphic novel, which it did. But like, no, didn't know anything at all. I mean, now we are in different times. It seems now that I think a lot more people are a lot more on top of the technical stuff. Like, for example, when I'm at conventions and I meet kids and talk to a lot of young girls, sort of 12, 13, 14, and they're all drawing fan art and putting it on Instagram, and that's already there. That's already there. There's no how do I do that? It's what just everybody's doing. And I was, when I started doing this, I remember Instagram starting and I wasn't putting my art on it. And I think I probably just dumped it after a while, which not terribly helpful. But like, yeah, it was a lot. And also there is a flip side to this, which is, and I say this to architects when I meet them, we have a significant advantage in that, yeah, drawing figuratively is not easy for us, but we can draw things. And we can it isn't so people when I sort of say, oh, architecture is like comics, if people, oh, they give me lots of buildings to draw. That's not what I mean. It's we can organize a page, we can do planning, we can put structure to a story. And that is part of the architecture job. It's like you have to kind of think what is important and what's the word? Some real basics in architecture, like what is important here in you're talking to a client. What do you want? What you actually want, as opposed to what you say you want. And making a comic is like that, which is what does this thing need? And what does this thing need? And what comes first? And how can I make you what can I bring to this that isn't just this? How can I make you feel? So, for example, doing the shark comic at the moment, and the young boy watches the shark gets shot, watches the shark being shot. And in the script, it was just one panel. And the shark gets shot. Well, you just see the boy's face when the shark's shot. And then I was like, I'm going to make that into 6 panels. I'm going to draw the boy 6 times to really, drag it out. And so it's like that. It's like, I mean, we use the term real estate. The page has real estate. It's the same. So there is a whole range of things that we can do and I could do. And this really, 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 really helped me. And designing things and aesthetics. And does that look better than that? And so on. And that we have lots and lots of practice in that. So that helps. But in terms of actually doing it, no, nothing. And I do, I have massive holes in my education. For example, I'm colouring a cover right now, and I don't know, colouring. Nobody's taught me how to do that. Architects definitely aren't doing it. Um, so, people say, "Oh, we talk about color theory," and I'm like, we're having this conversation. I was having this conversation with my partner yesterday, and he started talking about the color wheel, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't think I've looked at one." So yeah, we don't. It is winging. It is winging it, and but the architecture thing. So, because in architecture you are massively winging it all the time, because it's like somebody comes up to you and says building an office building, and you're like, yeah, well, it's the same, how do you do that? And you sit down and you figure out how you do it, and then you do it, and just don't stress too much about it, and then it kind of happens, and it's the same, more or less. So I know I do. My art education is terrible. Well, not terrible, but like I have some really big gaps. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that going off to study art now would particularly help. When I got made redundant, I sat down with a friend called Dan Berry who used to teach comics in the UK, and I was like, should I go and study illustration? I'm 42. I can, do I need to? And he was like, well, you have to think what you're going to get out of it. It's like you already know people, you can already do some things. You you know what it's not going to give you. It's probably not going to give you the contacts. And I was like, well, maybe I don't need to do that. I mean, I think people go to uni because they're not ready to do the thing, and not that it's not that the uni is going to train them to do the thing. They just need a bit of a run up on it. And I just didn't really have time for that. I was like, well, what are you going to do? You're 42. You're not going to sit on your ass for 3 years. It's like that is not the time. It's not the time. Time passes really fast, like at light speed now, really
No,
fast.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think you brought up like a lot of things like how, because like your education experience of being an architect, and like and incorporating that into illustrating, it shows like how like the comic book writing and illustrating industry has changed like so much, with like the tools of the trade has changed so much. Like some people like do free drawing, and then also with web comics, which both Whitney and I have seen like implode. In that sense, it's like people are just especially with webtoons, like that has um like has increased in popularity. So how do you how what are like the things that you think, like the struggles that both writers and illustrators have faced over recent years, especially with the various tools of the trade that are changing, and also, and I know you definitely have an opinion on this, the use of AI, which, as yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. I have
know.
opinions on that.
Yes. So yeah, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so talking about how tools develop. Well, the weird thing is they have and they haven't. In the, when I first started architecture, it was very much you'd pencil it and then you'd ink it, and to some extent that has never gone away. And but also with AI, having traditional art with all its flaws and its rough edges is, I think, coming back. I was talking to somebody. I have a friend who's like an architecture recruiter, and he came to see me at New York Comic Con this year, and we went round the show before the show opened, and we were talking to just who was there at that time, and it was basically all these art dealers, these original art dealers, and he was going up to them and he was saying, "What do you think about AI?" And I was like, oh. And then the art dealers were saying things like, I think it's really good. I think it's really good. And I was thinking it's because it's going to be really good for you. And so that is a weird, this is people selling traditional art, is when AI comes in, the traditional art's going to be worth a lot more. And it'll be of a lot more interest to people. And I think about that sometimes, and I'm pretty aware now. I think people are turning back to working traditionally for this reason. AI in comics, I think, is really bad, obviously. I have many issues about AI. My main one is the broader issue of it being a labor issue. Not that AI coming in will make us lose our jobs, because that happens. You know, I've worked in architecture long enough to have gone through that process of technological disruption, nuking half the workforce. That happens. I don't mean that. I mean AI coming in and destroying people's capacity to think for themselves, to create, to write, to get things down on paper. I think it's a broad labour issue, which in the future which is possibly what it's been developed for, where it just disempowers people and makes them worth less and makes them small in the world and makes them not be able to say what they want to say. And so that's a sort of different take on AI. But I think it's a very broad, it's a serious labour issue, and I think it should be blocked at absolutely every turn for that reason. It's not because it will take my job away. I hope it won't. It's because it will take people's capacity to advocate for themselves away. And, you know, it's an existential problem to me. But in terms of how the techniques have changed, I mean, that happens. How can I put this? That will always continue to happen. Technology will always change, and we need to change with it. And I don't mean AI. I mean, for example, when I did Hit Girl, I drew Hit Girl traditionally, and um, I earned enough money I could buy a Cintiq, and I like that a lot because it means that I can do colouring, and so I could for example, I could do covers, which up to that point people weren't asking me to do covers because I couldn't. People couldn't see that I could do them. And it still took a while. It took. Oh, I drew all Sleeping Beauties on the digitally, and in that time, I didn't do any. I wasn't asked to do any covers for my own book. I didn't do any cover. I did one cover for Hit Girl. So there's this very long period of time where I wasn't doing covers for the comic work I was doing, and that's really bad. Where I mean, this is, if there's any comics people out there that say this, you need to do the covers to your own work, because people think, I think they think less of you, and you aren't seen in the world if you aren't doing the covers. You're hiding inside a book doing sequentials. There's a lot of invisibility. So doing covers is important, and and working digitally is linked with that. Even painters have to be really good. I mean, you get people like, you know, Megan Hetrick, who oil paints her covers, and like, yep, that's technologically really complicated as well. It's just different. You know, really good at scanning, really good at photography, fantastic camera, still technology. So, so yeah, that's how it is. AI in comics, what I've seen so far, it seems to be the they can't follow, they can't that the AI can't do it. It can do some things and it can make images, but they don't have flow or story. And I think this is something to do with the thing I said before, actually, which is kind of, what are you trying to say? You know, if you're trying to kind of knock out a book and not bother to write it, then maybe it's going to look like that. You know, you have to have intention and thought, and writing isn't easy, and people who've got stories to tell don't just, like, you know, produce them out of thin air or with no thought. And that is the bigger problem to me, is it's kind of, if I say to people, if you can't be asked to write it, I can't be asked to read it. And I really think I think that if nobody bothers to actually write their story, it's just intrinsically going to be rubbish. It's like the monkeys with typewriter thing. Yeah, you might hit a good story, 1 in 200 possibly, or but like, why would I interact with that? And when somebody has run the software 200 times to get that one story, and I don't know, it's the equivalent of burning down a forest or something. Like, again, why would I want to see that? So, yeah, I mean, technology exists. You can't stop people. Whether it's actually worth looking at is a whole other matter. And I think, I think people, I think people go into two kind of groups. There's people who don't give an absolute monkeys about this. I don't know that many of them, but I'm sure they exist. And like my brother will just read absolute trash, which I suspect may already be written by AI, where it's the same stuff. And there's other people who like, why would I read that? I'm reading something, it's absolute trash. One thing I would say about Chat GPT, I've noticed it being used quite a lot just on stuff on the internet, and I've almost stopped being able to read it because it's got this kind of style that is really annoying. Like, it's tiring to read it. They're putting in all these words and the sentence flows in such a way, and you're sort of like, I hate this. I hate this. You can tell it's Chat GPT. I hate it. I really do. Yeah. That's that said. Watch me read some AI next time when I don't know.
Well, I guess the point of AI is for it to learn, but kind of circling back on what you said earlier, I think it it is such a labor issue because at machines and technology are going to replace workers, but I feel like AI is definitely going to be used as a way to not pay people or like, well, if AI can do it, like why would we need Alison Sampson to draw this if like an AI can scan her work and like just put it out there and do it? Or, it can be just mass recreated somewhere else and then you're not getting paid your just dues, or God forbid, like someone's work is stolen. So we wanted to ask like how in the world of AI and ChatGPT, and the piracy and other things and the cost of everything going up, like how can we as readers, consumers, best support authors and illustrators like yourself?
The simple answer is to share our message and to buy our work. I think it's not all money that comes from buying our work comes to us, but that's neither here nor there really. It's somebody might enjoy reading something and then they pass the book on to somebody else and then they like it and maybe they buy it. Well, it doesn't really matter. It goes off out into the world somewhere. Um, and sharing is good. I mean, the other thing I would say about that is that, yeah, AI can replace us, but can it? I mean, I feel that this is why I say to people, they say, be weird, be weird. You're bringing something to the table that wasn't there before. And I'm not entirely sure that AI can do that. I mean, this is like I was saying about this book cover to this Blink thing, where I have to sort of take an idea and then, I don't know, think it into something. And none of my book covers, look like anything that anybody could replicate, because I don't know what I'm going to do until I do it. And so being weird is good. And I suspect being weird is, will continue. And for other people to support artists in this kind of world where AI is doing whatever it's doing, is don't buy the AI. You know, just turn your back on that stuff. NFTs fizzled out into nothing because nobody bought them. well, we kind of realized they were rubbish. AI is the same. Um,
Didn't know how to
but yeah,
buy it, and I didn't even I never knew what an NFT was or
well, yeah.
crypto.
So I have this at that time I had this Facebook group, and I didn't, and all the artists were starting to get a bit like, itchy about maybe they should be doing this thing. And um I got a friend who's a data scientist to come and talk to us about what NFT to tell us what NFTs were, because I didn't know either. I mean, like, I read some tech stuff, but like it's just words. And so what I wanted was somebody who could just come in and tell us, in words we could understand. And he did. And he was really, really brutal. Like he was like, it's just a URL, don't do it, more or less. It's just like, it's rubbish. It's nothing. It's a URL. What are you doing? And a good bunch of the group were like, okay. And then a whole bunch of people were like, I'm going to do it anyway. And nobody has come out of this well. Um, and yeah, I think as I say, turning our back on AI, the only people who are going to help us are ourselves. And you can only do what you can do, but you can do that. And you don't have AI books in your library. Um, when you see your dad reading an AI book, rip it out of his hand and throw it away. I don't know. I mean, coming from where I come from, I could just see my family getting really into it. And it would just be, you, you can only do what you can do. But like, yeah, no, don't touch it, don't read it, don't buy it, don't give them any money, and just trash it at every turn. And like as I say, I think it's a broad, almost existential labor issue. And you know, we're heading into kind of dark times. Do not make it any darker, you know? Just don't do it.
I think it also
Avoid.
like it also like and I think it also ties into not only AI but with things like making even producing a book itself might be like it will definitely be the cost of like the materials and stuff is definitely going to go up, and that's going to go into the price of the book, and that is going to, I feel, increase the like people wanting to pirate the book, like having, and I know Whitney does this, so she should not say anything. What they call in for manga scanlations. They will have a scanned copy of the book on the internet before it becomes like the proper English version,
Yeah.
and they do the production of the book. So, and I
Yeah.
know like a lot of manga publishers are trying to decrease that amount, but the the reason, like, a lot, not saying I approve of it, but the reason because the production of the book costs so much and is putting into the book, but it's like you said, it's a labor of love. It's the thought of the process and supporting the writer and the illustrator, and even whether it's from the bookstore, from the library, and just passing it to someone, it's that support of that it shouldn't like be pirated, or the use of AI to incorporate into it.
I mean, I have various thoughts. I have a whole range of thoughts on this because it's yeah, how did I get into comics? Where do you think I got them from? The first comics, the first modern comics or sort of non 2000 AD comics I read, yeah, I downloaded them. So I had no idea where to get them from. We don't have that many comic shops here. There's like two shops in London or something. It's not many.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
same in New York. It's not
it's
that
it yeah,
many.
like that. It's not that easy to get them. And so I'm not going to, hold reading scanlations against anybody because to be really honest, that is a way of exploring an art form that you go round and you you're learning about this art form, and that's going to pay off in other ways, that you'll buy some other books. But also, I mean, I haven't thought a great deal about tariffs and all of that, but I would expect that is going to be, it's going to affect I mean, I don't know where things are printed. But a lot of stuff is printed in China. All these kind of nice Kickstarter hardbacks I know people do, it's China. So the costs will be passed on to the consumer, but the consumers aren't going to be able to pay this stuff. So I would expect this is going to have a knock-on effect into digital comics. It may not happen quickly, but it has to. I mean, I don't know where all that's going to go, but if there's any kind of amount of time in it, it will be that people just can't buy hardbacks, and people turn around their Kickstarter projects and say, I'm going to do it differently. Like, you can download it, or I'm going to put it on Gumroad and you can download it. So people will get round these production issues by doing something else. That said, I kind of realized a few years ago that the sort of the artifacts of the 20th century, and I mean things like books are this, the artifacts of the 20th century are going to disappear. That when people say, well, they don't make them like they used to, that's absolutely true of loads of things, many, many, many things. And, where things were made with care and now they're not, or, books stop being quite so easy to get or become more expensive. And I think it's a bit like people are starting to say, own terrestrial media, buy the book, so you actually have it, as opposed to not have it. I think music has come round on this, where everybody was, when Apple iTunes came in, and everybody was like, can chuck away my CDs, yay. And then lo and behold, they don't own their music on Apple. And I mean, like that. That's what I mean. I think that's going to come around. It happened with music. Is the renting economy, where the book is out there and you are here and you've got to pay a subscription to access it, or maybe you can't access it, maybe it's just taken away. You can't see this, but I'm facing a whole wall of books, and I think people will realize eventually the value of actually having the books, and maybe being a bit more, what's the word, thoughtful about what they have as well. I mean, if anything,
see, Whitney, see.
has this been said before? I don't know.
Yes, she says this to me all the time. It's like, why are you buying the books for your library? And like, you shouldn't have copies of the book. And I'm not gonna blur my background.
Look, if she unblurred her background, that's
you know
like
what? Fine. I
collection.
don't care. I am proud. See, books.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, she's going to crush the person under her, is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
No,
that's true.
But for me, it's just, I don't, because I currently work at a library, I don't buy books, but I do buy CDs. Like, I'm a K-pop fan, like wearing my K-pop rock and roll girl group shirt. But like, you can't get those. And to your point, like, the music on Apple Music, on Spotify, is not music that you own. And once they take it off, despite you're paying, 10, sometimes $20 a month for it, it's not going, if they decide they don't want this particular artist or this particular song, and it'll be your favorite song too, on the platform, it's not going to be there, and then you're SOL. So I buy CDs. I never threw away my CDs. I did throw away the jewel cases, but I am a CD person. But I also grew up, I was born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. So physical media was cool, and owning it was cool, and just walking around with your Discman in your hand with your janky earphones that you had to do like some type of dance, so get working, right? But like so that having physical media, I still have DVDs. I don't watch them as much because you can get it on Netflix and all of that. But no, I definitely believe uh in media. I hope that I don't go into the world of overconsumption. I do need to edit and get rid of stuff, but I make the conscious effort of buying from artists who like are my favorite. I know I'm gonna love their stuff. And then for what I don't know if I'll like, I'll just ask for it for Christmas and my mom will get it for me.
Or you can swap something, or
Yeah.
you discover. I mean, stuff gets discovered in all kinds of I mean, this podcast, all kinds of ways. Like, I don't know, somebody gives you a book, or you go to a convention and you're like, what is that? And or whatever. But also moving on out from that, it's a bit like the cinema. I mean, you're talking about Netflix, a bit like the cinema. I love going to the actual cinema. It's a real treat for me, and I like the escapism of it. And I'm aware that the escapism I get from going to the cinema is not the same as watching the same thing on my tiny screen, or this what I'm looking at, tiny screen in my house. Not the same at all. Books is the same, where it's, you're talking to somebody, I read this, and they're like, oh, I read that as well. And, book groups and the whole sort of social aspect of reading, which I sort of, well, I don't participate as much as I would like to be honest. I mean, what's unfortunate about this job is that it is very, very, very time consuming, which means that I don't read as much as I'd like. And what you can't see is basically stacks of books in my room. It's kind of like stacks of this is the Silver Metal Lover. This is Tanith Lee. So when I found out about Neil Gaiman, that stuff, I was like, oh, Tanith Lee, go and find out about Tanith Lee. And it's like, oh, so it turns out it's quite good. So yeah, I basically I have I don't have a great deal of time to read. So when I do read, I will say it's trash paperbacks. Um, and yeah, no shame. Absolutely no shame here at all.
I have
Still
Kindle
reading.
Unlimited. Well, I mainly have Kindle Unlimited because you can't find anything that's on there uh, at the library or in the bookstore. I mean, a lot of it is like self-published garbage, but that is also the charm of it all.
But self-published garbage, we call it garbage. But there are some really great writers. I think kind of I mean I read fan fiction, and I'm very, very aware that in the fan fiction world there's some much better writers than I've got print books for. Like, they're really good. And I mean, when you read stuff like that and you're looking at lots and lots and lots of authors, you realize who's really, really good. And it's usually women. And there is a whole thing here about marginalized people who can't get into the traditional publishing world because they're marginalized people and they're not white guy, and they don't fit into this sort of risk-free box that publishers might want, and they're off on the margins doing self-published, not garbage, but whatever they want to do. And we're reading it, and I think there is something that's going to happen here where those people and that material is going to become more and more what people are reading, and how they come to it is going to be a good question. I mean, it's a bit like talking about the internet. It's like the internet used to be stuff that was outside of us, like Internet One. It's like you're going and you're finding out where such and such a thing is in your town, and then the internet started being made by the people who were looking at it. And I think reading and books is going to be like that, where all these marginalized people, I would like anyway, all these marginalized people and the K-pop and all of it, it starts kind of becoming it. And all this legacy stuff becomes legacy stuff. You know, you're like, I'm reading, you know, reading Salman Rushdie, Booker Prize winning such and such and such, and it's like looking at an antique or something. It's just a different thing. And yeah, I think there's a lot of evolution that's going to happen, and I suspect with all this production, cost of production, and the fact that people are increasingly marginalised, it's getting worse, no doubt, that this may be almost an inflection point in this. It might, you know, I don't like to say that hard times change things, but I do remember reacting to Margaret Thatcher, where it was like very much we're going to punk was the example of this. You know, like we had everybody in the UK was really poor. We were having a really shit time. We had power cuts. We had sugar shortages. It was just nobody had any money. And punk came along, and it because we just want to destroy everything. And I don't know. Dark times, sometimes people find their voice, possibly.
I think what's gonna happen, I know there's like an internet joke where people are gonna start hiding um like the cheat codes for or like the nuclear codes in the recipe on the recipe pages.
Yeah.
Like that's what I
Well,
feel like in our revolution in the coming revolution in our current political climate.
I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. I mean, you know, in the 20th century, you know, in say Eastern Europe, you have people using, I mean, Kafka's a really good example, allegory, which, you know, the women in Marvel story I wrote and drew was about abortion, and Marvel published it because it was an allegory. And like it's which is to say, allegory is like plausible deniability that something is about something. And I think we will see. I mean, I hope people feel that they can keep writing and keep speaking, but I would expect, you know, you'll be looking at the art of the sort of the 60s, 70s, and 80s in Eastern Europe and see what happens. There's quite a thing. People did not stop making things. It just got difficult and got weird. It got really weird. Um, but you know, where you can't talk about something, but you find a way of talking about it by talking about something else. Animal Farm, another really great example. Um, where and I think this is an interesting literary form, full stop. I mean, it's very close to architecture, because architecture is like that, where you're talking about something but not talking about it also because you're making a building. Um, so yeah, so no, it's interesting. I just hope that people don't stop writing and don't stop speaking. And there's all these things coming along to try and stop them writing and speaking, and AI and dreadful people, government stuff, and all of this kind of thing. I just hope that people feel, even if it's within just their small network or however these things are done, that they carry on speaking and writing. And we keep on listening and reading as well.
So we did want to ask, and you probably it'll probably be a hard question for you to ask, and to answer. You've illustrated many comic book series, and you provide illustrations for comic book series. So we did want to ask, like, what would you say was your favorite, or which you had the most fun comic book series you had the most fun illustrating for?
Well, I've got different questions. I mean, I have three separate answers for that. The first
Mm.
one, obviously, is my own creator and books are the best, obviously, because it's come out of nowhere and it's something that I've made. And anything to do with Image Comics, I feel very strongly about that. This say what you want to say, make what you want to make thing. I feel that that is just essential. But that is just I would hope that goes without saying that is true. But equally, there's two other things. this is going to sound really weird. I mean, Department of Truth, I liked, they got my best work. I'm not entirely sure why. I think James Tynion does something, which is, I've had this conversation with other people where it's sort of, he clearly does do something. I mean, and aside for the writing, I think he's very mindful about who he's scripting for, that he gives them a lot of space to do something and pushes them into that space. I think he's a really interesting writer in that, why does he win so many prizes? Because he does something. And I think writers should be all over him, like figuring out what it is he does. And I think it's largely speaking to his artist, and it's knowing his artist in such a way. But the actual answer to the question, and this is really weird, is that I think my best book is Hit Girl. And then there's reasons for that. And the first one is I was paid a lot of money to do it. But also, and this is, I think people will realize, the people in my books are real people. And I originally didn't know I was originally going to be drawing Kick-Ass, which would have been a whole other thing. But Peter Milligan is very sympathetic. He's a very sympathetic writer. He's a very smart guy. He's not a racist, in my opinion. And so he wrote this story, and I roped in a really large amount of people in London from the South Asian diaspora, and they weren't all from not all from India. There's people from Trinidad, from Mauritius, from a lot from London. It's like involving all these second generation immigrant kids who didn't know anything about India at all. It's like, and the parents were all very keen for this to happen because it's sort of it was a method of them finding out about things they didn't know. Like, you're going around with a sari and you're like, how do we do that? How do you put the sari on? And there's a broad range of personal stuff that was done with people, and making a story about India as it genuinely is now, as it actually is, as opposed to what people think it is. And people think of India, I didn't draw that cover, that was Declan Shalvey's cover, not a bad cover, but what was I going to say? People tend to think of India as poor. They've seen the film Slumdog Millionaire, which is very rich people, very poor people, not a lot of in between. There's cows, and they have this sort of idea of it. And and the reality is, it's a modern, well, it is many things, but it's also a modern country with a middle class, and Mumbai's full of traffic, and there's so much stuff going on. And I wanted to tell Americans that Mumbai was full of real people doing real shit, having real lives. And we did that. And yeah, and that's nothing to do with the fact I was paid to do it, or nothing to do with the book, or it's just something that I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I remember when the book came out, and you'll see this, that on the cover it's Hit Girl India, not Hit Girl Mumbai, like all the other books in the series have the city name. And it's because I think, is it because Americans don't know that Mumbai is a city? Why did they not get their city name? And that's the kind of thing where you're trying to get through that, where you break the stereotype. Say there's a middle class, she does dancing at the weekends, and she gets to go to the shops, and it's just, and yeah, no, I and it worked. Somebody said to me, I said, I saw your comic was mentioned. They went to some kind of conference on comics from the south, the southern hemisphere, and they said your comic got a mention, and I was like, I hope it was okay. And it was like, yeah, no, it's okay. And it's important. This is really important for me. I think it's partly to do with living in London, because London is absolutely chock full of people from the Indian diaspora, and I know loads and loads of them. And it was just a really fun thing to involve people. And as I say, how does educate, I mean, Sleeping Beauties is the same with this, where Sleeping Beauties has a number of is about gender largely, and has a number of trans people in it. And my friends who are trans are having particularly difficult times, and I included them in the book. And we actually got Stephen King to rewrite the story from the novel, because the novel Sleeping Beauties very controversially has a gender binary. And when they came to ask me to do the book, I was like, you need to sort this out before I do it, because if you don't, we're going to get all the same comments, and it's going to be worse because you will have been forewarned and you ignored it. And we went back to the King family with this, or rather the publishers did, and Mr. King, who I believe is in his 80s, did not need to do this, and he rewrote the story to give a more contemporary definition of gender, which completely changed the book actually. And so this Sleeping Beauty is this graphic novel. It's like a bit of popular culture, and it's gone off into the world. It's on library shelves and in people's houses. And that is how you change things. And going back to Hit Girl in India, it's like, what is Mumbai really like? Well, it's just now it's on somebody's shelf, out there. And that is how you change the world. You don't necessarily change the world by tweeting stuff online, but you make a book about people working in Mumbai, and it just goes off somewhere, and then it becomes part of the culture. And yeah, it's comics are very good at that, because nobody takes them terribly seriously, so it sort of sneaks in. It's true. So no, I like that. I like changing the world by being super, super lowbrow. It's like, yes, it's the way.
Wonderful. So our next question, we've talked so much about your process and how we can support other creators like yourself. So we wanted to ask, like, what advice would you give someone looking to break into the industry or illustration in general? Maybe what are some hard or soft skills that they would need to succeed?
Well, I think there's a good question about what the industry is. That technically anybody can make a comic at any time and publish it. And I would say the first thing is if you want to do it, you should do it. And I say to people, they say, well, I have an idea for this book. And I was like, well, maybe, think about, have a look around and see who's making anthologies, and maybe do a 4-page story. Right, it's it's not too consequential. Maybe if it doesn't work, you can just do another one or something. And I try and push people towards shorter things. And if you're in anthologies, and this is how I got into it, is with Solipsistic Pot. People see it, and then they will ask you if they can have more of the same. And that's how it works, is people see things you've done and ask you for more of the same, which also means you've got to show people your work. And you can do that in lots of ways. It isn't always about putting it on the internet. You might be sending PDFs to editors. You might be showing up at a convention for a portfolio review. You might, I mean, of whatever. You might be just self-publishing your book. You might be handed something on the street. It comes in all kinds of ways. It's getting used to showing people. That is a hard skill. I mean, there's drawing things and there's showing people, and these are different skills. And the showing people, often people find very, very difficult. You've got to get over that. You've got to get over the I am not good enough. I can't show people. No, there's nothing happening if you don't show anybody. So and getting round to it as well, which with me it was needs must, where I was made unemployed and I was like, what am I going to do with my day? And sometimes it works like that, where you're like, I just need to think of something. I think, see, I came to this in my 40s, and the way I came to it, because I did make something for an anthology and somebody did see it, and it took a long time to go from that to where I am now. This is a really, really long game. People, this is another thing, is people expect oh, I made something and suddenly I'm going to be, I'm really, why aren't I being asked to do things? It's not you. It just takes ages. There's no second place either, if you're not first in line, you get nothing. And there's therefore acquiring a thick skin and critically saving your money. Save your money, save all your money, because you do not know when, what's going to happen. You must never take it for granted, any of this, because somebody's going to come along and, go, I'm a better version of you, and you've gone. And, technology might disrupt us into oblivion, or production costs, or anything. So do it now, enjoy it while you can, be patient, show everybody, try and be as good as you can, be weird. I think that's really important, particularly in times of AI. AI can't do that. If you're weird, be weird. It's interesting to people. And also, being weird, there's a whole load of weird people out there who are going to get it. They do. It makes it more enjoyable. So, push the envelope in that. Don't do what people want, do what you just feel like. And the heart stuff is important. It's heart over head. You look at the work of somebody like Zoe Thorogood, who is speaking to people. My heart says I do this, not my head says people need that. That's the way. And Zoe Thorogood apparently came out of nowhere, but the way she's done it is by speaking to people, and that is speaking from the heart, and potentially being weird as well. I mean, there's like nothing wrong. It's good stuff, but she connects. Connecting is it. So otherwise, yeah, save your money. Just do it. Yeah, whole thing. Being able to color your own work seems to be very, very helpful. And having a bit of a grasp of production processing. Don't be, what's the word? I say, don't be a boomer. Don't be this person who just has to have somebody else do all your technical stuff for you, because we are now not in that space anymore. There isn't that money as that horse has bolted a long time ago. You've got to be on top of your own technology. You've got to be really efficient, and what you hand in has to be right, because nobody's got any time to chase after your lack of technical skills. And so, but that is not difficult for people, particularly if they're coming from another job. Anybody who's had any job pretty much knows how to do things properly, because that's what jobs are. You may be picking vegetables, but you know how to do it well. And this is no different. You do it, and you do it well. And that's it. There's nothing weird, or, well, I was going to say it is really difficult. I mean, I was going to say it's nothing weird or difficult. It's really difficult, all of it. And it is good to continue to find it difficult. Don't ever say it's easy, because that is the end. It's always hard.
I feel like the tagline of this entire discussion is be weird. That's it. Be weird.
Absolutely. I mean, do what you like, because it connects. It's like be weird. It's the future. Absolutely.
So,
I'm quite happy for that to be my big banner. Is be weird.
okay. Well,
You
we'll
do
get
that.
on that. Yeah, I'll do that. All right. So we are at time. So I want to thank you so much, Allison. It is always a pleasure talking with you and getting the insight into your, like, of all the things that you know so much. I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg, but we enjoyed just that tip right there, because you always have, like, you're very bountiful of information.
We
And
love to have you back, though.
yes, definitely. We, of course, this is like part one. There's going to be a part two, three, four, five.
I have so much to say.
Yes.
I was going to say, get me back, and we'll see how some of the things I've said how they've weathered, and
Yes.
see anything has occurred, or whether we're just the same. I think we're in very, very dynamic times, and some of it's not bad. I mean, some of it is, but some of it isn't. So it's just interesting. I mean, changes in technology, it's very interesting, you know?
You know, it is. And I think we're getting back to what we took for granted. And it's like that physical media. So I think we're getting back to that fact, like we took it for granted because of like the technology. It was like this new technology we're getting used to, but now we realize like, hey, this was something that still exists, and it's nice to go back to that original format. So
Yeah. And doing something like, say, reading a Charles Dickens paperback, costs nothing. You can get one off the internet for like £1, and it's
mhm.
like just the pleasure of reading. It's like
Yeah,
it's what it all comes down to.
exactly.
I think I have a Charles Dickens book I can just give someone. I had to read it
Yeah,
in college and I still have
Yeah,
yeah.
me and Charles Dickens. Only the Christmas Carol. That's it.
I will tell you, it has absolutely come round. It hasn't quite done it yet, but it's going to have a moment in not very long.
Oh no, because he really talked about the stuff that people didn't want to talk about. He just like he threw it into people's faces like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, this is Victorian times. It's not all like tea and crumpets. There's like people in
yeah,
poverty, and it was he really highlighted that, and I appreciate him for that. But he just went on and on.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true.
I was
That's
like,
true. Which is why I like my books being read to me. Yeah, no, it's kind of is when it's an audiobook and you're colouring in a cover, it's a whole other matter.
yes. So we also want to thank everyone who watched this live and also is going to watch this recording later. You can always follow Cup of Tea with That Book, please. You can visit our website, and we're about to enter those things into the chat. Um, sorry, I had the links like right there, and now it just disappeared. Well, maybe Whitney can help me with that.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. There we go. You have the website and also our Instagram threads and Blue Sky, and also listen to the Book Club podcast on Spotify. We have all those links into the chat, and also follow Alison on social media. She is on Instagram, Threads, and on Blue Sky.
I
So
am.
so thank you everyone for coming this afternoon.
Thank
Again,
you, everyone.
happy Easter, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.